everyone. Welcome back to our Facebook Live Tech Talk, very focused on artificial intelligence. Today, we have one additional way where we are trying to communicate with you, which is this is also right now being broadcasted live on Clubhouse. So, if you have questions, probably that is the easiest place to be, but please feel free to add questions here on the comment section here on Facebook Live. Our topic today is on unsupervised learning. For those who are joining for the first time, we are Skive. We are a autonomous AI company based here in San Francisco and London in UK. We are indeed hiring, so if you're interested in working in the intersection of artificial intelligence, aerospace, and healthcare, please reach out to us. We are building machines that feel. And one of the related areas is unsupervised learning. In these AI Tech Talks, we usually cover areas that in artificial intelligence. Last time we covered unsupervised learning. This time, today, we're covering unsupervised learning. We'll start with how you'd really describe unsupervised learning in a much more human way. You can all go to online or read a textbook on deep learning to know what is the definition of unsupervised learning. But here, I will try to provide you a much more human way to define and describe unsupervised learning. And then I have at least one or two questions from the audience that I've received so far, and I could actually answer that. And again, we are also on Clubhouse right now. It's being broadcasted there. This is actually our first time using Clubhouse, and it's working great. Okay, so here we go. What is unsupervised learning, or what is unsupervised learning deep learning algorithm? Unsupervised learning is one of the form of deep learning, which we covered last time. The best approach to building AI solution is not the supervised learning data-driven approach being dominated today in the industry. Instead, unsupervised learning moves from the static to the dynamic models, much more raw generalized data as opposed to label data. Further, for unsupervised learning algorithms, human intervention to tag or annotate data is not needed, making these algorithms much more scalable and robust if designed and deployed properly. And that's the key in unsupervised learning, because it's much more, unsupervised. You need to be much more careful about the design of the algorithm, which takes a lot more time, and the deployment part of it, because once deployed, the system learns on its own to some extent, depending on what kind of unsupervised learning algorithm that you're using. We probably won't have time to go into a lot, but I will give you a good example on what unsupervised learning is. And and just to give you a little bit background on the history. Not that much on unsupervised learning or deep learning as we know it today, but from a historical perspective. I'm a great admirer of the father of computing or computers, Alan M. Turing. And he, in 1950, described a similar approach to building systems that learn like a child. This was back in October 1950 in his paper on computing machinery and intelligence in the Journal of Philosophy called Mind. What he said was, it can also be maintained that if it is best to provide the machine with the best sensor organisms that money can buy, and then treat it to understand and speak English. This process could follow the normal teaching of a child. And that is to some extent describe what unsupervised learning is, fundamentally. The different forms of unsupervised learning, but that's what fundamentally describes unsupervised or self-supervised learning. I will give you a good example. And my plane is back. We are obviously working on aerospace, and I'm a big fan of flying. I'm trying to get the pilot license as we speak. So our plane is back, and I will use this as a way to describe what unsupervised learning is. So as you will see, this is a plane. There are different components to that. You have the wing, you have the rudder on the back, you have the nose, and usually planes flies this way. But there's another configuration of the plane, which is it could actually fly this way, and it will still fly. And this actually was actually a better way, where this thing is actually at the front, and that design where the plane was going this way as opposed to flying this way was just for one of the IP issues because of Wright brothers, and not a lot of people know that. But that's why most of the traditional planes are flying this way. Now the question is, how do we get a software system to figure out what is the right way for a plane? If the plane was to see a photo and say, okay, the plane is flying in the right direction, there is no issue with that. Is it this, or is it actually this? Because from a technology perspective, both are okay. And that's where how supervised versus unsupervised learning comes into picture. In supervised learning, what you would have actually done is, and I will put this thing on the back. What you will have done is that you have taken lots and lots of photos and videos where the plane is flying this way with this thing on the back. You would have then gotten human beings to say that, okay, this is the right direction. This is how the plane should be, where the nose are at the front and the big wings are at the front, and then the rudder and aileron are actually at the back. And then you would have used this data and provided that. So the next time the system, that trained the system, would see this plane and it's flying this way, will say, okay, yes, this is the right way how a plane should work. But if it sees something like this, where it's actually going in that direction, that system would have given you wrong results, even though the plane can go in this direction. And the only reason, one of the huge big reasons why planes don't go in that direction, is because of the patent issue that thanks to Wright brothers. And that's where unsupervised learning could actually help. So instead of actually giving it trained data, if the unsupervised learning algorithm saw that the plane is flying this way, everything is going well, it's not going back and forth, the roll is correct, the yaw is okay, the pitch is also okay, it would have taken that this plane flying in that direction is actually a feature. And that's what unsupervised learning algorithms do, that the feature is extracted from the scene in an automated way. The feature was, can the plane go in this direction, or what is the right way to fly a plane? And obviously that unsupervised learning was dumb because of us humans, because most of the people think that the only way to fly the plane is this way with this thing on the back. But that's actually not the case, as we have seen. And that's the powerful way of deep learning, or to build a system, which is unsupervised learning. Okay, with that, let's see. We had at least one question, and let me try to answer that. And let me go to my notes. And the question was, since unsupervised learning don't need tag data, does that mean that they are easiest to implement and deploy such algorithms compared to supervised learning? The answer is yes, but no. It's simple as garbage in, garbage out. And there you could have much more garbage in when it comes to unsupervised learning than garbage out. And that's what we need to realize, that once deployed, the garbage out is less because it's an unsupervised learning algorithm. To some extent, I also think about unsupervised learning algorithms, or sometimes it's called self-supervised learning algorithms. They does give the computing system a lot more instinct that we human beings have. I would even contest that supervised learning algorithm also have that, but the unsupervised learning algorithm is learning both how a specific object is working, as well as what these objects are. So it is trying to figure out what are the features of this plane, how it could actually travel, and at the same time it's also trying to figure out that this is a plane. So as it works more and more, it gets better in that. And that should answer this question as well, that yes, to some extent, it's easier and much more accurate once the unsupervised learning is in place, but at the same time, it's harder to build. Yes, you don't need a lot of data to get an unsupervised learning algorithm up and running and deployed. You can start with less data, you can start with raw data, but the key is to design that system. So what I've seen is in supervised learning algorithm, it's much easier for you to really to design and deploy it, where the design part, I would say, is much less, because you need the data, you need tag data, and because human interventions is involved or human supervision is involved, that's why they're called supervised learning algorithms. The outcome is much more probabilistic. To some extent, it's more on the predictive side. In unsupervised learning algorithm, it's harder to model the problem. What is the problem you're trying to solve? And because the data in or the garbage in could be much, much more, and the job of that algorithm is to figure out the answer. So, for example, trying to figure out, you probably don't even need to say that plane going this and this direction, this is the roll, or this is yaw, or this is pitch. Those things, to some extent, can be something that the unsupervised learning could learn on its own, because if you design it well, which is the plane needs to fly, and it needs to fly in the right direction, and it needs to make a turn, and if all this is going on, it could try to abstract the feature, and the feature could be this roll, or it could be the yaw, or it could be the pitch. In a supervised learning algorithm, you explicitly needs to define these in the model and tag the data based on that, where you need to say that, okay, this is actually roll, or this is the yaw, or this is actually the pitch. I hope this was a little bit more intuitive explanation of what unsupervised learning algorithm is. I will highly recommend pick one of the books on deep learning, and you will be able to figure out a little bit more about what unsupervised learning algorithm is, or what supervised learning algorithm is. But I tried to give you a little bit more humanistic way of how to think about unsupervised learning. Thanks. Keep the questions coming. As a reminder, this video will be posted on our YouTube, on the Skive YouTube channel, and we will be live again on Clubhouse and Facebook Live next week, same time, same day, Wednesday. Thanks. I'll see you next time.